call a public hearing to consider rebating 100% of the municipal sales tax and 50% of the municipal home rule sales tax for a period of 6 months to retain operations of Crate and Barrel at 6050 Gurnee Mills Circle East, rebate not to exceed $50,000 to order. Roll call, please, Andy.
Baumus.
Present.
Hood.
Here.
Thorstenson.
Here.
Ross.
Here.
Garner.
Here.
O'Brien.
Present.
6 present.
All right, this is a public hearing, so if there's anyone from the public who wishes to give testimony, you will be sworn in by our village attorney, but I will let Pat take it from here.
Sure, so I'll just give you a really quick intro, and then I'll kick it over to Ellen, who's got a short PowerPoint. The opportunity has presented itself for us to retain Crate and Barrel out at the former Toys R Us site for an additional 6 months to give them a taste for what Gurnee's consumer retail power is in the summer months, and with things related to the pandemic improving. In order to do that, it'll take some participation on our part related to sales tax sharing. So as I said, Alan's going to walk us through a quick presentation here and a little bit more detail on the agreement and how we got to this point.
Okay, thank you, Pat. Thank you, Mayor. So yes, in June of 2018, the store closed as part of the Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection suit that was filed by, they closed stores nationwide. It took about a year and a couple of auctions, actually, and then Centrum picked up our particular store, which had closed in June of 2018, in July of 2019 through auction, and they've been marketing it ever since. They are pretty well versed in retail brokerage and have shared with the mayor and I some of the potential tenants that they've marketed it to. They've been fairly aggressive, but while they were doing that, still haven't, landed that permanent tenant yet. Struck a short-term 6-month lease with Crate and Barrel for one of their warehouse locations, which opened last October and really just closed a few weeks ago prior to the end of their February lease term. So by definition, in Crate and Barrel's lexicon, the warehouse sale is a pop-up location intended to serve a very short-term purpose, limited time only, clearance merchandise, sample merchandise, things that never made it into the stores for whatever reason, and then it closes. In our case, the Gurnee store's purpose was to move inventory while they cleared out one warehouse and moved into another warehouse down in the south suburbs. And I think they were very pleased with the way we fulfilled that mission and were able to close right on schedule, having fulfilled the purpose. So it was a good location for them. So in the process of that, of course, you can imagine we approached them regarding a permanent location. Retailers aren't adding a lot of permanent locations these days, or they're doing so very judiciously and carefully. So the answer was, we can't talk about that right now. So we sort of retooled our approach and said, well, you really need to see Gurnee at our finest. And we're busy in the summer, and we'd like you to be here and see what that looks like from a retail strength perspective, to Pat's point. So that was really our approach, was to see if we could, with some village assistance and the landlord, bringing some concessions to the table, strike another 6-month deal. And as you have noticed, if you've been out, it is closed. It's been closed now for a couple of weeks, few weeks. So they really, but the prospect of village assistance, made a critical difference. And so with that, tonight, pending tonight's review, they have advised us that they will reopen the store as an outlet location with a slightly modified merchandise mix. So this will be discontinued items, discontinued furniture, maybe some second quality furniture, items that they sell in their home stores that are, samples, sort of a variety of outlet merchandise. So I anticipate it'll probably look a lot like it did before in terms of the mix, but maybe with some tweaks to what they're selling. And we're thrilled with that. As with our prior sales tax, rebate agreements that are in place, this one is proposed to be with the landlord, not with the tenant, although it's certainly very narrowly targeted toward landing, so that lease has been negotiated. They've reached terms on a 180-day extension. And given that the store was already operating, it should be pretty seamless in terms of them getting open and operating again. We wouldn't anticipate any construction, but we are, of course, covering ourselves to make sure that the landlord maintains the building in sufficient condition to allow them to operate on a temporary basis with a CO from the village. And during the 6-month term that this extension covers, which will end at the end of September, the proposed rebate would share to the landlord 100% of the state shared sales tax that we receive and 50% of the home rule, which of course preserves the 50% for capital investment per our policy. And we'll terminate then at the end of September, or when that $50,000 cap is reached. And going great guns, I think that they will probably reach that. So certainly anticipate that that's the case. Bottom line is, there's only 9 of these outlet locations, permanent outlets in the entire United States. So while this one is just a 6-month location, it's certainly a big improvement on having an empty building there, which would otherwise be. And we want them to see Gurnee at our best and busiest. So that's our best, I think, best hope of enticing them to consider a permanent location. The fact that there aren't, so Naperville is the only outlet in the entire state of Illinois. There are none in Wisconsin, I believe. So that would put us in a pretty good spot to try to entice them. No guarantees by any stretch, but it is our best approach. And we're glad that they agreed to it and appreciate the board's consideration. I apologize. The property owner had advised us that he wouldn't be able to make it tonight, but I will try to do my best to answer any questions.
Questions from the trustees? Trustee Thorstensen?
So what is the anticipated, it says the 50% and up to a max of 50,000. So can you explain what their revenue potential would be to help us understand that?
So obviously, once we get when the agreement's adopted and we have access to all their records, their sales records, we'll know more for sure. But just based upon just other stores of similar size and kind of what we anticipate and the little glimpse that we've had, I certainly think they could easily be a store with revenues in the $6 to $10 million a year range if they were a permanent location. And they did brisk business over the holidays, so I wouldn't be surprised at all if they do max out on the 50,000. So we would be keeping, even if they don't max out, we'll be keeping our probably $10,000 to $15,000 worth of home rule sales tax toward capital. But we hope they do. That would be a win-win if they do max out.
You can't, so we don't have access to their financials to be able to truly calculate?
Well, the village has seen, what they've done so far, but it's a pretty limited glimpse. They were only here for really, I think, in terms of the amount of, it's not something that until we are into the agreement, can't be shared publicly anyway, but we have enough of a glimpse that I think we're pretty bullish on their ability to max out that rebate.
I'm glad you're able to get this agreement going. And then the last question is, you said that it would be an outlet. So how you described it sounds like it might come up a level in terms of additional.
I think so. That's how I'm thinking, thanks for that question. That's how I'm perceiving it. The warehouse sales just aren't something that are permanently in their pipeline. It's up and it's gone. So the outlet, certainly if they operate it like the permanent, anything close to what the permanent outlets are like, I think it will be a nice selection. And obviously the inventory that was there during the short time they were there as the warehouse sale, there were a lot of scratch and dent, sort of things that had been returned to the store, but it moved, and people, the discounts made it very enticing, so I do think it's up a notch. Thank you.
Trustee O'Brien?
Is it my understanding that if a property is vacant for more than a year, they can apply for a reduced property tax? So does this reset that clock?
That's a good question, Trustee O'Brien. I don't think so, because it's a temporary leasehold. There's probably some, I think it's something that we should certainly.
It's just interesting because
it would be beneficial if it did set the clock.
Sure, for the other taxing bodies, of course.
From a property tax perspective. I suspect that the property owner wouldn't do anything that jeopardized that position, if they felt that was a key to their pro forma. So, but I have to say, I've been very pleased with, they're just as earnest about this as we are.
Sweet, thank you.
Yeah, sure, thank you.
Other questions? Trustee Garner?
No, I don't have one.
Oh, okay. All right, so I'm sensing a consensus that we're in favor of this. So do I have a motion to recommend, question, Trustee Thorstensen?
Did you say, I'm giving you the motion?
Oh, okay, I hadn't finished it. All right, so do I have a motion to recommend this for action at our regular board meeting? Motion by Trustee Thorstensen, second by Trustee Garner. Roll call, please.
Baumus.
Aye.
Hood.
Yes.
Thorstensen.
Yes.
Ross.
Aye.
Garner.
Aye.
O'Brien.
Aye.
6 aye.
All right, that's the end of our public hearing. So do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion by Trustee Garner, second by
Second.
trustee O'Brien. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We will reconvene in 3 minutes. Of March 15th, 2021, to order. Roll call, please, Andy.
Baumus.
Present.
Hood.
Here.
Thorstenson.
Here.
Ross.
Here.
Garner.
Here.
O'Brien.
Present.
6 present.
All right, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, good evening, and thank you, Vice Chair Hood, for handling the budget hearings and everyone's participation while I was gone. I appreciate it. It's a shame to miss my last one, but you guys did a good job getting us a balanced budget. I know there's some finessing before we vote on it, but that was yeoman's effort in this economic climate to be able to do everything that we're going to do, even with reduced revenues. So thank you all for your hard work on that. First order of business, item A, is approval of the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Motion by trustee Baumus,
Second.
second by trustee O'Brien. Roll call, please. Andy?
Baumus.
Aye.
Hood.
Yes.
Thorstenson.
Yes.
Ross.
Aye.
Garner.
Aye.
O'Brien.
Aye.
6 aye.
All right, Patrick, please read the consent agenda into the record.
Item number 1, approval of ordinance 2021-16, approving a 2-year contract with Alpha Building Maintenance Services for janitorial services. Item number 2, approval of resolution 2021-03, approving a 3-year fixed-rate contract with AEP Energy for the provision of electricity for pump stations. Item number 3, approval of resolution 2021-04, establishing certain property of the Village of Gurnee to be surplus, Public Works Units 262 and 264. Item number 4, approval of setting a bid date of April 12, 2021 for Waveland Avenue Water Main and Culvert Replacement Project, University Avenue to Woodlawn Avenue. Item number 5, approval of payroll for period ending February 26, 2021 in the amount of $832,956.49. Item number 6, approval of bills for period ending March 15, 2021 in the amount of $1,794,027.90.
Thank you, Patrick. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as read into the record? Motion by trustee Ross, second by trustee Garner. Roll call, please.
Baumus.
Aye.
Hood.
Yes.
Thorstenson.
Yes.
Ross.
Aye.
Garner.
Aye.
O'Brien.
Aye.
All
6 aye.
right, I'm going to move on to petitions and communications, and for the sake of brevity, during the COVID pandemic, I'm not going to read these into the record, but just ask for a motion and approval on each one. The first is approval of proclamation designating April as Fair Housing Month in the Village of Gurnee. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion by trustee O'Brien. Second by trustee Thorstenson. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, it's Fair Housing Month coming up. Our next one is approval of proclamation designating 911 Public Education Month, April 2021. Do I have a motion to approve?
So move.
Motion by trustee Thorstenson, second by trustee Garner. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, it will be 911 Public Education Month. Number 3 is approval of proclamation designating April as Child Abuse Prevention Month and recognizing the Blue Kids Lake County Project. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by trustee Hood, second by trustee Ross. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Our last one is approval of proclamation designating April as Alcohol Awareness Month in the Village of Gurnee. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion by trustee Baumus, second by trustee Garner. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. And we also have a reminder that our final budget hearing to approve and appropriate for the fiscal year 2020-2021 will be on April 12th at 6:40 PM, so you can mark your calendars. And next week's Committee of the Whole, we really don't have anything ready. We've got spring break and everything else going on, so if at the board's pleasure, any concern about canceling the meeting for
So
Committee
moved.
of the Whole?
What's it scheduled?
At the 19th?
That's, no, it's the 25th, right?
22nd.
Oh.
It's the 22nd?
Yep.
Is there any objection?
No.
Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by trustee Hood, second by trustee Garner. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right, that brings us up to reports. We have a presentation tonight from Brian, our finance director, to tell us where we're at with the economy.
All right,
Brian, it's all yours.
thank you, Mayor. Included in the material was the 13th COVID update through the end of February. So we'll try to hit the highlights here. Maybe. There we go. From a duration standpoint, as you know, the whole state of Illinois is in Phase 4 now. Obviously, to get to Phase 5 requires massive rollout of the vaccine. We're not quite there yet, but moving through the phases. Status of the big three: Six Flags, they are moving full steam ahead. Gurnee Mills obviously is open with capacity limits as required under Phase 4 and safety protocols. Same with Great Wolf. Nice to have them open. General fund revenues in total, through February last year, we collected just over 37 million. This year, just under 30. Leaves us with a 19.2% decline, or about 7.1 million. Originally, we had projected total revenues here to be down about 10 million. Current projection, after obviously we've had some more actual experience, is about 8 million, or about 18.5%. Big Four makes up 7.8 million of that, and we've seen some, I'm going to call it sustained, I guess, drops in fines and red light and things like that that we thought would bounce back. So I separated those out just to highlight that it's a small portion of the overall 8 million, but 200,000 of that is largely because of those two revenue streams. Looking at the Big Four, total revenues here down 7.2 million, or about 34% versus last year, again through February. A couple of months of receipts, sales tax for March. We took a look at this, revised the estimates again. So we're looking at 7.8 million in total as a projection through the end of the year, or 31% down. We'll get into each one of these a little bit here. Sales tax projected to end the year at about 15.3%, or 2.6 million down from last year. We saw an 11% drop in February's receipts. That was concerning. Happy to report that March receipts for the month of December, so the holiday shopping season, was only down 5.5%. So we revised the April to be down 10%. That's how we came up with the year-end estimate there. Amusement tax, we've said for a while now that this is going to be the biggest one for us here. Projected to be down 3 million, about 82%. And again, we've seen for February receipts, we're down 72%. We projected 80 for the final 2 months. A little bit hesitant to be more optimistic here, because we still have that question mark of the timing of past sales when it comes to Six Flags, and how those are going to, timing of that is going to work out. So I didn't want to be much more optimistic than the 80% here for the final 2 months. Hotel tax projected to be down 1.4 million, about 72%. Revised this projection a little bit for the final 2 months. Obviously, with Great Wolf open, that changes this one drastically. Down at the bottom, you'll see the April number there. It shows it's 145% over last year. That's because last year that was the first month of the shutdown for that. So we didn't want to compare to an already shut down month, so we took it versus a normal month, 65% of that. 65% down from a normal month, so that's how we got to that figure. Food and beverage expected to finish the year roughly $740,000 down, or 37%. We did revise the final 2 year to be 25% for the final 2 months. This is one where I think we could easily beat it, but still wanted to be conservative in what we've seen here, and 25%, as you can see from the last 6 months, is not far off of what that average was. Looking at the expenditure side here, we're looking versus the seasonally adjusted budget, down, or I should say, to the good, 3.1 million, or about 9%. Originally, we had estimated about $3 to $5 million in savings. Looks like we're going to end up on the higher end of that estimate, so we're still holding the projection of 4.6 million, or 11% expenditure savings here by the end of the year. Obviously, most of that is personnel related, as you know. Looking at general fund balance here, I wanted to just take a slightly different approach and kind of walk through how we got to the latest projections and the different iterations. Started the year with a budget projected surplus there of $105,840 right in the middle of the screen. The original estimate that we had come out with once the lockdowns and COVID had hit, we thought we'd use between 5 and 7 million of fund balance. So the original estimates there put us right at 6 million. Once we got to the budget preparation, so roughly 3 months ago, we revised some numbers, had some better data. The CARES Act money, that came down to just over 2.9 million. Few more months of experience, better than we thought, on both sides, revenues and expenditures. We think that'll end up just under 2.3 million at the end of the year here. It's important to remember that next year's budget, we do have budgeted 922,000 use of reserves, so add that to the 2.3 million, and that gets the total over 2 years, use of fund balance. Still a very good position. Threats and opportunities, we're still monitoring this. Just a couple things with the new American Rescue Plan. There was some language in there about housing and foreclosure, those moratoriums, extending some deadlines there. Still working through what that all means in that bill. A lot of information coming out. And then, obviously, under the opportunity side is the American Rescue Plan, which we'll talk about what that means, at least the municipal contribution portion of that bill. Signed March 11th, 2021, includes $65.1 billion for municipalities. Our estimate, the Gurnee estimate as of right now, is $3.75 million that can be used on eligible costs through December of 2024. The one difference from the CARES Act, and I want to make sure to keep those two separate because they are very different and very separate, but one difference is these funds can be used to make up revenue loss. So obviously, we talked about our revenue loss for this year being that 7.8 million, somewhere in there. Obviously, we would cover the 3.75 million eligible just with revenue loss. As of now, it's supposed to be distributed through the state of Illinois in 2 allotments. I didn't read half anywhere, but I'm assuming it's half and half. 60 days after enactment of the bill, so somewhere May of 2021, if everything goes okay. There is a provision in there because ours comes through the state, that the state could take a little bit more time. But sometime this summer, we should see the first allotment, and then the second comes 12 months, at least 12 months after the first one, so sometime next summer. So the impact would be fiscal years 22 and 23, half and half. There's still a lot of questions. I can tell you the emails I've gotten just amongst the finance director community, there's still a ton of questions on how this will come in. There was some language about a potential fee that the state could keep or take out of it because they're the ones, administering the distribution of the funds. How long it will take them to distribute it, as we've seen in the past with different things, they've been known to drag their feet a little bit, so that could impact this. Very hesitant to put any of this in any kind of budget or make any recommendations on it until we see something either in the bank or more concrete that comes out from, either IML or the state or the Treasury. So as of right now, that's what it looks like. But again, a lot of unknowns, and I'm hesitant to include this in any kind of budget amendment for next year or even in next year's budget until we know more. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
So Brian, I know there's questions, the timing and the amount and everything, but you're confident that we will probably receive something?
Yeah, I mean, it's in the bill, so, hopefully there's something in there for municipalities, and we should see some of that. I think the dollar amount is still in question, and how it comes to us has to be worked out when the Treasury goes through and puts some guidelines into effect.
All right, so unless I get an objection from the board tonight, I would like to direct staff, Patrick, Ellen, and Brian, to look at some amount to give some relief to the small restaurant community. I know they've been particularly hurt, and I know some communities have done different combinations of things, but they were able to do that because they had the property tax. We haven't, so we've been hesitant about helping. But I think if we put some thresholds in there, maximum, certain percentage of revenue loss, maybe no drive-throughs because they haven't hurt, maybe not a chain, although some of the chains are locally owned, but think it through, think what we might, if we get money back, what we would be able to afford without hurting ourselves and not being able to deliver services. See if there's some proposal you can put together for the board that might offer some relief for the resident, and then that would be brought to the board for debate, discussion, the dollar amount, how it would be administered. I just think that we've held back doing something because we didn't have a property tax. But now, if this money's really coming through, it might be time to put something together. So this would probably be a May type thing, and maybe by then you'd have more concrete information.
Yeah, and I think, we're set up in such a manner that once we have something more concrete, it would be fairly easy to amend the budget and do something like that if that's something the board wanted.
All right, so Patrick, you know what my thoughts
Yep.
have been. And, okay.
Yeah, we can work on
I
something.
take it there's no objection tonight to even doing something like this. Trustee Hood?
Just, how was our number calculated? How did you get the 3, whatever?
So they had a formula that was a per capita formula, and they broke municipalities, and Pat, stop me if you could add anything here. They broke municipalities down into a few different categories. It was like 50,000 population threshold. There was a certain amount of money that went to one and a certain amount of money that went to the other, and it was distributed based on population.
So it's nothing to do with need or
No.
anything like that, just strictly, okay. So then the chance to get $2 or $3 million is a real possibility, as opposed to someone deciding that we don't qualify.
Yeah, no, I definitely think there's something coming. I just don't know if it'll be, 3 million or 3.75 or how the timing of how it'll get here. So, and I think a lot of those questions will be answered fairly quickly because everybody has questions. So there's going to be some pressure on not only the Treasury but the state to come up with some of that. And I know the IML is working to get some of those answers. So.
Yeah, and the IML is very good at communicating with us frequently. So Trustee Ross?
As long as you're considering things, I'd like to consider the employees too that didn't get their COLA, and so maybe figuring out how much that would be and how that would come if we replace that for the year, what they missed.
Well, we gave them last year's COLA and this year in the new budget.
But it isn't going back retroactively.
No.
So I just see how much that number is and
We can work on a couple different options and then bring it back to a committee of the whole meeting to discuss before we take any formal action at the board level, obviously, so.
All right, I don't want that to include the trustees or the mayor's salary.
right, neither.
We stay at half.
I'm talking about the
Okay.
employees.
And Patrick, include yourself in that calculation. Okay. All right, that's fair.
Thanks, Brett.
Yep,
All right,
thank
good
you.
job, Brian.
Thank you.
Looking at every penny. that was the only report.
Correct.
Rivers, fine, no issues.
It's on its way back down.
Okay. That's what we like to hear. All right, then no old business, so I'm going to move on to new business. The first item is approval of ordinance 2021-17, approving a sales tax rebate agreement between the Village of Gurnee and CRD Gurnee 2 LLC. Patrick?
Sure. This was the topic of our public hearing at 6:45. Just to go over it again quick, Crate and Barrel has been operating out of the Toys R Us building, warehouse location that was always proposed to be temporary and wrap up at the end of February. Did well out there. As the end of the term was coming, we reached out to the property owner to see if we could keep Crate and Barrel in that location for an additional time frame to give them the opportunity to see Gurnee during the summer months when our retail and our consumers are really in town spending money. Working with the property owner and Crate and Barrel, they were able to come to some terms, which included participation from the village in the form of rebating some sales tax. 100% of the municipal sales tax, 50% of the municipal home rule sales tax over a period of 6 months or $50,000, whichever comes first. So we would rebate that 100% and 50%. We would retain our 50% of home rule sales tax for capital, which we estimate to be between $10,000 and $15,000. So staff felt this was a good opportunity from a village aspect. Otherwise, you're going to have the Toys R Us building vacant again, not generating any revenue whatsoever. Also buys us 6 months, as I said, to be able to shine and work with Crate and Barrel to see if we can get them here on a longer-term basis.
All right. Questions from the trustees? Trustee Thorstensen?
I just might add, I mean, I'm completely behind it. I think great work for everybody that's able to pull this together, but isn't it true that if we were to look at, if that company was looking at finding another tenant, it's better to have somebody occupying it, show the potential?
For sure.
And Trustee Ross? Okay, just to remind the board, I said this in 2008, I said it to Ellen last week, we're not going to be able to save our way out of this, we're going to have to invest our way out of this. So this is a very good investment to get a building filled. We got the Lowe's filled. In April, Ellen and I and Pat are working on something to get most of the Sears building filled. So we're doing good refilling these, but it's taking a small investment on each one. But what we get back, the return on investment is really good. So what we did in 2008 is working for us again now. So I have a motion from Trustee Ross, second by Trustee Thorstensen. Roll call, please.
Baumus.
Aye.
Hood.
Yes.
Thorstensen.
Yes.
Ross.
Aye.
Garner.
Aye.
O'Brien. 6 aye.
All right, motion carries. Item number 2, approval of ordinance 2021-18, authorizing the purchase of software and hardware from CDW Government LLC and the execution of a 5-year Cisco System Enterprise Agreement and purchase of firewall equipment from CDW Government.
So I am going to kick this to Information Systems Director Velkover, who will be able to do a much better job explaining this than I.
Thank you. Everybody has a copy of a memo from our network administrator, Ryan Nelson, who did the majority of the legwork and analysis, and we wouldn't have had this ready for you this soon without his work on it. I was going to highlight a few things on it and answer any questions. This represents a 5-year agreement that has recurring services at a fixed price, so we know where we're at for the next 5 years on these services. It also includes a hardware component, which is some firewall hardware. The services run on top of that firewall equipment. The vendor selected for this, the manufacturer, is Cisco. They're a longtime partner of ours. We want to be able to leverage some of the integrations they have in their product. A lot of times we would pick a best of breed or something like that, but in this case we want to use the ability of the different components to all work together. They've demonstrated that over time. This isn't a convenient marketing thing for them. This is part of the core approach they have to security. Just to touch on a couple of the different components and maybe try and explain some of the benefits. The endpoint protection, everybody's kind of familiar with this concept in terms of if you run antivirus, anti-malware on your home computer. This is the enterprise version of that running across all of our desktops, laptops, cell phones, things like that. And then it brings the ability of that detection mechanism to kick in the other parts of the protection. Right now, we run a system by McAfee. It's done a good job for us over the years. It doesn't really integrate with anything else we have. And for instance, if you had a detection on a laptop or a desktop, by integrating in with the rest of the network, you could get to the point where upon detection, you could actually shut down that machine's access to the network in an automated fashion. You don't have to rely on somebody doing it manually. You try and automate that process. Another component is related to multi-factor authentication. I like to explain this as it's something you know plus something you have. Everybody's familiar with username and password. If your username and password is compromised, then somebody can impersonate you, use your access, et cetera. Multi-factor authentication, you couple that with something you have. So is it your smartphone? Is it a token? Is it a USB plug-in device or something so that if someone had your username and password, they still wouldn't have access? And if you lost that token or smartphone or whatever it is, they wouldn't know your username and password. That's the basic concept behind multi-factor authentication. This is a system that we've used in the past, but in the course of this contract, we could expand it out to, we'd be licensed for all the users in the organization for it. Umbrella is another component. It's a DNS service. We used it prior to the acquisition by Cisco. It's a good one in that every time somebody tries to access a website, it does the lookup for that domain name, and it's an opportunity that if, in this case, this Cisco cloud service knows that that's a site that has been compromised, has a bad reputation, has some reason why we shouldn't be allowing users to go to that site, it intercepts that DNS request. And that can work across smartphones, desktops, laptops, et cetera. Another layer of protection in what we're trying to accomplish. And then the firewall hardware that's included in here, that's really the platform that the firewall services run on. In this case, that would be a pair of new units. They would back each other up. Not only would that help in case of a hardware or software failure, but it also lets us do upgrades, take one down, keep the other one running so that service is uninterrupted. And then the hardware that we're taking out of service would get pushed down into some of our other uses, and then some of the very oldest firewall equipment we would retire at that point. So it's a good reuse across the board to try and get the most value we can out of those things. But I don't want to go too far in depth. I'm happy to answer any questions on that. Again, it's a 5-year agreement, fixed cost, with some hardware on the front end.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you to Ryan. I can tell you this is an insignificant amount of money compared to if we get a ransom, which is becoming extremely common for municipalities, getting their systems taken over, and then they want ransom money, and several big cities have just paid it to just get their systems back, and there's been all kinds of, Christopher's given me several examples, even here locally, and I know I've been concerned, and all of us, about security, and now we have people working remote, and it just gets so this is a very, very wise investment, because if something happens and we get a ransom letter, it will be a lot more money than what this is going to cost us over 5 years.
There's certainly no guarantees, but
I know.
do your best practices.
I know.
And I would add that some of these things fall right in line with what we're seeing when we get inquiries from insurance and stuff like that for the types of things they're asking.
Yeah, this mitigates, doesn't eliminate, but at least it mitigates. Trustee Hood?
So Chris, this runs across everything, police, fire, public works, nothing's left out.
Yeah, it does. It affects all of our departments. They all benefit. All the users and devices included incorporate all those different departments. Each department has slightly different considerations. Like for multi-factor authentication, that's really, you see it more on the police side, but then you're seeing it come up in all the other departments as well. But through the criminal justice information handling, they were some of the first ones to be affected by those requirements.
Great to hear. Just bright peace of mind.
Other questions?
Make a motion.
All right, I have a motion from trustee
Second.
Garner, second from trustee O'Brien. Roll call, please.
Baumus.
Aye.
Hood.
Yes.
Torstenson. Yes. Ross.
Aye.
Garner.
Aye.
O'Brien.
Aye.
6 aye.
All right, motion carries. Item number 3, approval of ordinance 2021-19, approving an equipment loan with Gurnee Community Bank for a term of 36 months in the amount of $33,339. This is for the Bittersweet Golf Course Toro Greenmaster Triflex 3300 mower. Patrick?
Sure. So the golf course is in need of a new greens mower. In the past, they have worked on a 3-year loan basis. So as we own the golf course, the loan is in our name, but the golf course makes all the payments on it. As we work through the financials and the capital planning with the golf course, this has come up over the past year or two. Golf course recently located a unit, a demo unit with less than 100 hours on it for sale that will save them $2,000 while not sacrificing the quality. Finance Director Gosnell worked with Gurnee Community Bank as he had in the past on the financing aspect to get this before you. As I said, the golf course has figured this into their financial planning going forward. So the payments are in there. Haven't had any issues in the past with them making payments on prior pieces of equipment. Don't expect any issues going forward. They had a great year in 2020, which I'll get Kathy to a future board meeting to report on that, and plans for 2021. But this is a needed piece of equipment that's been hanging out there for a while, and from a financial standpoint and being able to locate a demo unit, we feel it's appropriate to move forward on it.
Yeah, and I'd add, and I'm glad you're going to have Kathy come, but Bittersweet has been kind of a bright spot with amusement tax. I guess golfing is kind of a socially distanced activity, and they have had a tremendous year. So Pat will get them in front of you guys soon, and you'll hear why they've done so well in their new numbers, but this is well worth it, too. Questions from the trustees? I have a motion from trustee Thorntonson, second from trustee Garner. Roll call, please.
Baumus.
Aye.
Hood.
Yes.
Torstenson.
Yes.
Ross. Garner.
Aye.
O'Brien.
Aye.
6 aye.
All right, motion carries. Item number 4, approval of ordinance 2021-20, authorizing the execution of a business service order with Comcast Business to provide service to Fire Station Number 3.
Sure. So I believe at the last meeting or the meeting before, we brought forward ComEd and North Shore Gas. Now we are bringing forward Comcast for your consideration. So this gets Comcast service to Fire Station Number 3. There is no charge to the Village of Gurnee. Dave Ziegler took a look at the plans. Chris was involved from an IT perspective to make sure what they're running in the building would meet all the information systems needs. It does. The installation costs, again, that are going to be absorbed by Comcast are $11,803.14. So no out-of-pocket to the village. This gets Comcast service to Fire Station 3, so continuing to get those utilities lined up as the station continues to progress at a great pace, and we're probably going to shoot for having a committee of the whole meeting at the station. So the board will be together, and we'll just tour the station as one of our committee of the whole meetings, so we're not violating any public notices or Open Meetings Act violations. So we see that coming here in the future once the weather warms up a little bit.
Okay, questions from the trustees? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by trustee O'Brien, second by trustee Baumus. Roll call, please.
Baumus.
Aye.
Hood.
Yes.
Torstenson.
Yes.
Ross.
Aye.
Garner.
Aye.
O'Brien.
Aye.
6 aye.
All right, and Pat, we've got to work on the traffic light situation tomorrow. Let's
Okay.
get me updated, and then I can do what I need to do. All right. The end of our new business. I'll open the floor for public comment. If anybody'd like to address the board?
Hello. My name is Ryan Horth. I live at 4981 South Road. I have a couple things to go over tonight that I want to go over, so bear with me. The first thing I want to talk about is the whole debate that we've had about the village's ability to execute home rule authority to regulate the environment. And I'm not going to go over the technical legal arguments, which have been gone over a lot. What I'm going to discuss tonight is that if the village is not able to regulate the environment when the state has, somebody needs to tell the city of Chicago this. Because the city of Chicago has an entire department devoted to environmental regulation. They issue over 8,000 environmental permits per year. They have a website where you can read about all this. They're quite active. If you want to put up any pollution control device in the city of Chicago, you must get a permit from the city, and they will inspect your installation. In 2014, specifically, the city of Chicago passed an ordinance banning new pet coke, and coal facilities in the city. It also prohibited existing facilities from expanding. News reports from the time indicate that Mayor Rahm Emanuel was quite proud of the city for forcing closure of the last 2 coal power plants in the city. In March 2018, the city of Chicago passed an ordinance banning the establishment of any new facilities to store manganese, a toxic environmental pollutant. The ordinance not only bans new facilities, but also requires current facilities to produce quarterly reports to the city. So the city gets to inspect their reports about how much they've stored, what they've done with it. The city stated, quote, a spokesman for the city, ensuring that residents are breathing clean air is a top priority. We will continue to work together with city leaders and community members to improve the quality of our air, water, and soil. Notably, manganese, pet coke, and coal are all regulated pollutants that are permitted by the ILEPA, the Illinois EPA. Chicago still regulates them independently because they know that they can do so. To my knowledge, the city of Chicago has not been sued for any of these ordinances, nor have they been sued about their environmental permitting program that has over 8,000 permits a year, because there's no one who doubts their legal authority to do this. In December 2020, Mayor Lightfoot introduced a new ordinance to increase fines for air pollution violations. The city has its own system of fines for air pollution violations separate from the state system. So what's clear is, the city of Chicago knows that it can use this authority, and it's done so repeatedly, and in fact has an entire department. I wouldn't expect Gurnee to have a department for this. In fact, many of Chicago's regulations are enacted in such a way as so the city doesn't have to do a lot of regulating. But they do that. If you want a new pollution control device in the city of Chicago, you have to go through the state and the city, not just the state. So that's the first thing I want to talk about. And I would just summarize that with what I've always said, which is that environmental law in Illinois is a floor, not a ceiling. And the cities have always been allowed to impose their own rules on top of that floor. It's a well-known concept. It's the same way that federal environmental law works with the states. The federal law, except in a couple specific circumstances, allows the states to impose their own controls. And in Illinois, the state of Illinois and most other states have been past that ability to the villages and the cities. The second thing I wanted to talk about was something I just learned recently. This is really recent, and this is about the whole position of vice mayor. I'd never heard this term before, and I thought when I first heard it, I was like, when did Gurnee get a vice mayor? When did I vote on that? And so I looked around, and I looked in the municipal code online. I didn't see anything in there about a vice mayor. And so, I looked through a bunch of old meeting notes for about a year, and then I gave up, and I said, I'll put in a FOIA request and see what this is all about. So I got back this FOIA request today of October 21st, 2019, of an ordinance creating the position of vice mayor. And I read through this thing, and it says that the vice mayor is appointed by the mayor. It has to be a trustee, and it's approved with the advice and consent of the other trustees. And it specifies the duties of the vice mayor, or the vice chairperson, as it says, assist the mayor in special projects. But in general, it says that the vice mayor serves at the pleasure of the mayor and can be removed by the mayor at any time and is appointed by the mayor. And I thought to myself, I was like, that can't be legal. Any 1L in law school could tell you that a legislator is not allowed to work for the executive. And so I went to the Illinois Municipal Code, and sure enough, it explicitly prohibits such an arrangement. It says 65 ILCS 5/3.1-15-15. Holding other offices. A mayor, president, alderman, trustee, clerk, or treasurer shall not hold any other office under the municipal government during the term of that office, except when the officer is granted a leave of absence from that office or except as otherwise provided in sections. And it lists several sections, and those exceptions are just when the treasurer resigns or, certain circumstances that are temporary. But anyone who knows basic governmental structure can tell you that the trustees are legislators and the mayor is the chief executive. And the chief executive is not allowed to put one of the trustees to work for them. The trustees are specifically prohibited by the statute for exactly this reason, because if the trustees are working, if one of the trustees is working for the mayor, then the mayor, the executive, has control over the legislative branch. And not only that, but all the other trustees will be trying to curry favor with the executive so that they can get that position. It's an intolerable arrangement. No court anywhere would approve of this kind of a system. I was shocked to read that this even exists. And I did some quick looking. I couldn't find any city that has a vice mayor except Chicago. And Chicago's vice mayor is specifically outlined in state law because the city can't create that position. The state created it, and the reason Chicago created it, or the state created it for Chicago, is that when Mayor Daley died in office, it created chaos. And so they created this position, but it's different than the way it works in Gurnee by a lot. The vice mayor in Chicago has no role at all, does nothing. It's simply a position of succession if the mayor were to die or become incapacitated. And the vice mayor is voted on by the trustees, and the mayor has no involvement, because only the legislative can designate their leader or the person that would take succession. It's purely a successionary function. It has no role at all. The mayor has no discretion over it. And this is how the state outlined it, because the state knows that you cannot mix the executive function and the legislative function. It's a basic thing. I could go on with examples of the craziness that could happen in the federal government if, say, President Biden were able to take a Democratic senator and give him executive functions and be his right-hand man in the Senate. You just can't do that. I was really floored when I read that this actually existed. And the other thing that strikes me about it is how political it appears. That it appears that the mayor has organized, aside from allowing the mayor to exert control over the board, this position also appears to be the mayor politically using her office to boost another trustee who is now running for mayor himself. And it really stinks of political interference and abuse of the office that this was created. And another trustee was basically put out to the public as vice mayor, even though this is not a real this can't be a real position. I could go tomorrow and I could file suit, and a judge would be like, "This is gone. This is ridiculous." It's hard to even describe how ridiculous this position is. So the bottom line of me, I look I mean, I've had like over 2 years now of coming here, and when I look at various things that have gone on in the village, I look at this vice mayor position that was created somehow and passed legal approval somehow. I don't know how. I see on the ETO issue, we're told we can't regulate, and the city of Chicago is doing it for decades. And then the village, to get like backup for what it says, goes out and hires this law firm and says it's the same firm Willowbrook used. Well, this firm told Willowbrook that they could do it. I mean, we have the slides on the slide presentation that says, yeah, you can do this. You're more likely to get challenged on environmental issues, but according to the city of Chicago, yeah, you can do this. And then the firm turns around, the village here hires them, and suddenly you can't do it. Like, that doesn't make any sense. And then, of course, I see that the mayor picks the village attorney, and I see the village attorney is donating to the mayor's campaigns. And then I see that a lot of the business in this village is giving things like sales tax rebates to businesses. And what do I see? Those same businesses paying for the yard signs that are all over town. I mean, what does that look like? I don't think anyone here is corrupt or anything, but this system stinks. This is really corrupt. It's a corrupt system. These people, you know, they get a sales tax rebate, and then they give thousands of dollars to the same people who gave them that rebate so that they can be mayor. And it's like, you just see that, and you lose confidence in your government. And this situation, we've had one mayor for a very long time now, and now, to me, it looks like this mayor has created a vice mayor role with a specific goal of getting her chosen successor to fill her spot. And to me, what this looks like is that someone who's the mayor controls the purse strings of the village. And those purse strings are used a lot to lure businesses, this and that. And I'm not here to say that that's wrong or right or whatever. It's just a fact that that's what's done. And when you sit in that position a long time, power accumulates. And those people, you reward those businesses, and they reward you at election time. And power accumulates. And for me, the bottom line is that one person has sat in that chair too long. And that's it. One person has sat in that chair too long, and we need change in this village, and we need someone new. And I just think it's all rotten, and it just shocks me, like these things that I found. And like I said, this was just today, and the fact that, I mean, anyone could tell you that this whole vice mayor thing is just ridiculous. It's nuts. Like, I mean, if I was on the board, I would have been like, what are you talking about? But, I mean, I know not everyone is an attorney on the board, so I know some people are, but, so that's the bottom line for me. That's all I have to say today. I'm sure I'll have more. I don't intend to keep coming back here, but it seems like every week something new just pops up, and I have to come back. Thank you.
Are you finished, Mr. Horace? Yes, I am. All right, so the vice chair is our pro tem to chair when I'm unable to be here, or
The pro
it's
tem-
done by appointment, because
Yes.
we've always had a provision for a pro tem. Instead of going through that process at every meeting that I'm unable to attend,
Okay, let
we
me
made
add-
it permanent.
Okay, let me add that.
No, you don't get to respond. I listen to you, you listen to me. So we've always had provisions for a pro tem when I'm unable to be here. We codified it as an appointment as a vice chair. When I'm not here, the board automatically step in instead of there being a vote for the pro tem. The vice chair also can fill in when I'm unable because of my business travel to be at a meeting. They don't have any authority legislatively or executively, but they can represent me as if I was sitting there and be at the meeting because I travel sometimes. It was done with discussion of this board. It's done by appointment, and it's renewed as an appointment. It was not created as an elected position, like a vice president or something. And for just a matter of the record, I'm not even the mayor. I'm actually the village president. So
The term mayor and president are interchangeable.
It's a vice chair based on our pro tem ordinance. So it was all done here by the board with the consent of the board. It has nothing to do with legislative abilities, it has nothing to do with whatever I do. As far as the city of Chicago, yes, almost every piece of legislation passed in the state of Illinois either excludes Chicago or is specific to Chicago. So Chicago has a lot of things they can do that the rest of us don't.
Not on the
They have
environment.
their own air quality agency because they're the size of most small states. We're in a compact with the city of Chicago for regional air quality, but yes, they have a lot of authority that all the other communities don't have based on the different municipal codes. And when legislation is passed, sometimes they get things or they're excluded from things because they are technically kind of most of the time treated differently because of the size of their population. And we have the same Willowbrook PowerPoint presentation you referred to, and it does not say Willowbrook had the authority under
It
home
does
rule
indeed.
to shut down Sterigenics.
It implies such.
Well, implying and actually standing up in a court and being defensible
Right.
are two different things. It says you can do whatever you want. Yes, anybody can do whatever they want, but are
So-
you defensible? Would you be able to defend yourself? Would it stand up in a court of law? Two different things. Willowbrook
Right.
did not use home rule authority to shut down Sterigenics. The communities in Georgia did not use home rule authority to shut down those plants. They did use other legal means. Willowbrook's happened to be a business decision by Sterigenics not to renew a lease and invest all that money in capital on a leased property. They did not use home rule. Yes, anybody can go to court on anything, but is it a defensible position? Would it stand up? Those are the things that we have to do, and we have to decide. So I'm done, you're done, that's it.
You're not going to allow me to
You
speak?
can write a letter, you can come to the next meeting and go on with your conspiracy theories again. All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion by trustee Baumus. Second by trustee Thorntonson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.